Hi, I'm Rigger. This is You Were Right, and well, guess what? It's that time of the week again. Episode 8 of Ice Queendom just dropped, and things are going great for the show, not in the show. And I think we should just dive right in and talk about it. So before we start, if you enjoy this, please give it a like and a share and a comment and all of that. Subscribe for more and we'll just dive right in. So this was a really interesting episode. It definitely did the thing of we picking up right in the middle of the action, and they obviously went through their big dramatic scene from last time, but extended it because, a lot of animation went into that, so show it off again and continue from there, with Nicholas becoming this big guard statue and the giant Weisses everywhere, the very Attack on Titan stuff, and it's pretty cool. Except it was jarring for the very opening line. It was the moment where the giant Weisses say something, and then Nora says something, and the voice sounds exactly the same. It looks like the giant Weiss is talking through Nora, despite it being a Nora line, and it just felt weird because it had all the same reverb and stuff, and maybe it's meant to be like the influence of the Nightmare Vines, but it was a bit weird, but it doesn't matter. It was like the first second, get past that. Anyway, so the point of this is they need to come up with a plan, and what they decide is, well, RWBY says she can get in there. And what I really like is we're continuing to go down some progress for the rest of the characters. It's not just about Weiss. And one of those things is immediately, well, Yang says, that's too dangerous, there's no way, And RWBY says, no, I can do this. And in a great little moment, Blake comes up and says, she's our leader, let's trust her. And rather than treating her like a little sister, Yang gets behind this and says, alright, you do this. And that's great. Just little things like that of, let's move past, you're just my little sister, you're actually our leader, and you say you can do this, so alright, I trust that you can do this. And her plan is she's basically going to use her semblance to get inside and then put down a door so they can get in. Which is, pretty sensible. In the sequence, you do get some cool visuals too. There was giant Nicholas doing an anti-grav hand to pick up all the Weisses, big and small, and then does a death ray eye beam, although it just makes the big ones pop so they become small again. Although they do have some pretty cursed little frames in there. And they also have Weiss doing a modification of summoning, and instead of summoning a knight, she summons armor and weapons to give to a modified Jark, which causes the Jark program to start messing up, but he becomes her summon, which is pretty cool, and it's actually a cool little psychological thing, she's actually controlling him now, which is pretty awesome, and it has all the knight characteristics, it does the same poses and stuff, and it starts taking out the giant enemies, and even Nora and Ren, who got big, but we'll get back to them in a second. First, I just want to say that it's really cool that they do the sequence where RWBY says she can do this, she executes the plan well, she utilizes her semblance mostly to get around things while the others are distracting the giant Nicholas, and she gets inside and opens the door, and in a great moment that follows up immediately from what just happened, Yang comes through the door and goes, oh, RWBY, you did it, that was fantastic. And RWBY, rather than hugging her or saying thank you even, just said, we still gotta keep going, let's get back on track, we gotta move on. And rather than, celebrating with Yang, and Yang looks at her with all this respect, and it's great. It's like, oh yeah, no, she's being the sensible one, she's being the leader, and she's leading us, which will actually come back at the end when RWBY has a lot of self-doubts, which is very interesting. I'd also like to point out that RWBY using a flare shot is really cool and something I wish we saw more in the main series. Just, oh yeah, use a flare from her rifle, which I didn't know she had, and doesn't even matter if she had it or if it's just dust or whatever. But it's a great idea. Even if it's just dream innovation, it's good innovation. RWBY also comically gets a hint about, what Whitley is being Weiss's actual brother, which is interesting, but probably not too important. But we go from that great character development for Yang and RWBY's relationship and into more where we go into an analyzing Weiss, because as Weiss takes down the giant Ren and Nora, she seals them back into the prison, and what she says is, or into the cage, along with all the other Weisses they've captured up, which is most of them, if not all of them, and what she says is really, really interesting. That she will not, control them. She wants them to behave however they wish, so long as they're contained, so long as they're on the other side and locked away. And it speaks very interestingly to Weiss's character, where you might think, oh, why does this person who's sort of felt like a captive all her life, capturing her friends? Well, she's not. She feels that, people should be who they are, and despite feeling the need to lock them away, she also doesn't want to change who they are. She doesn't want to do to them what was done to her, where her family put pressures on her and tried to change her into something. Change them into what they wanted. She doesn't want that for her friends, so despite locking them away, she wants them to continue to act as they are and have that freedom. That's just a fantastic little touch. And we also learn more about the jail later, which makes this even more interesting. But we'll get back to things. I do like that we still have comedy moments for Jean. He stands up to Weiss like, oh no, I'm not gonna back down, and gets ready for a fight, and we just cut to them falling back through the portal into the cage, because obviously he lost immediately. But also very interestingly, I guess we should talk about that Weiss's gates can just be straight portals, which is great for convenience, but I wonder if she wished she had that power, or if it's an adaptation of the idea of summoning. Rather than summoning something to yourself and creating it, you're moving one thing from one place to another. But I think it's just for convenience in the dream, but it's just a cool addition to her powers that she doesn't ever have. Maybe she'll get it one day, who knows, in actual RWBY. Make gates, that'd be pretty cool. And also, I would not be the RWBY person I am if I didn't call out the callback. Fantastic, they did the pose. They did the Weiss falls on Jean pose from back in the original, and here it's Pyrrha landing on Jean's back the same way. Fantastic, great job, I noticed. Thank you. You can really tell when they developed this thing, they probably watched the original volume like 100 times, made sure to put in as many references as they could, even the little things of animation like that. It's very much appreciated and shows the level of dedication they have to this thing, and the effort they're putting into it, and the writing is reflecting that too. We're getting some great stuff in every episode. And what happens next is we actually get a little revelation, is that what happens in that cage is suddenly Jean notices that the grimm vines are getting in, and we learn that the relics are actually holding them back. So the positions of these relics, the one presumably in the Blake area, which we come across at the end, and the one in the bedroom where RWBY and Yang are kept, and the one kept in her boardroom, and the one kept by Jean and all of them in that sign, they are actually protecting the areas from the Grimm's direct influence. Those relics are like beacons that hold back the vines. So they were locked away, but they were also protected, all of them. Weiss had subconsciously protected all her friends and things she cared about from the Grimm, and placed those markers with them, but now by removing them, that has opened them up to be attacked. And the Grimm vines definitely notice they're here. They haven't ignored their presence any longer. The vines start to invade. So, Jean sacrifices another coin, opens a door, and they lead a jailbreak with as many Weisses as he and Pyrrha can get out of there. But Ren doesn't make it, Nora doesn't make it, and they lose some Weisses along the way in some pretty cool moments. I kind of wish we got more gruesome and heartbreaking with that, but it's okay. They move on and they get a few little moments. And they end up getting back to the train. And interestingly, the vines can't get onto the train. And they realize it's because of Jean's sword, and they theorize, well, the sword he left in the roof, the big one, and they theorize that it's because of Jean's interaction with the nightmare previously, that it's working similar to a relic, and they therefore can't get on the train right now. They're protected, they have a safe zone, but it's outside the city. But back with RWBY, Yang, and Blake, they make it all the way back to the theater again, to the stage. And they're gonna do their fight, and things go sideways immediately. Before that, RWBY actually gets spiked in the hand by the vines. It comes out and attacks through the scrolls that she's holding, and it spikes her in the hand. And I thought this was meant to be that it didn't actually, it was more from last time where she got her hand scratched, but it seems like that's not the case. Little sort of hand wavy or weird there with the consistency, but either way, RWBY now has the vine pattern on her palm. They stay on task and they go through the theater, and they are gonna fight the Grimm when of course they get stopped. And they get stopped by Weiss with her Jacques summon knight. Both Yang and Blake get sucked through portals pretty quickly, and they have a big standoff between RWBY and Weiss says that she's banished. She's sending her away. You're no longer in the city. She has given up on her friends, I guess, in this sort of headspace. And to illustrate that point, she shatters the relic that they were using in front of her. So now they've lost that relic and they've lost the red relic. And they imply that RWBY has been sucked away, but she hasn't. She's used her semblance to escape. So from Weiss's point of view, the portal opens, and she can't see what happens, and then she just assumes things go through, and then when she closes it, there's just petals. But Ruby has actually used her semblance to escape. And John finds her, and they head back to the train through some doors, and they go over the plan, which they now obviously have to change. And what I think is really interesting is they start this discussion where Ruby reflects on how she has been lacking empathy here. That all these negative things she's been seeing about Weiss, she's been judging her for. Why did you lock your childhood emotions away? Why are you doing this? Why? And rather than that, she should have been taking an empathetic approach of putting herself in Weiss's shoes and saying, well, why would she be doing that, rather than from a judgmental side. And really, as Ruby was saying, she's never really worried about Weiss. Like, she didn't really have a reason to worry about Weiss, and she was worried about everything else. And Ruby has been, almost looking at how it affects her and affects other people and the situation they're in. And she does want to save Weiss, obviously, but she just realized she hadn't been looking at things from an empathetical position. And it's very interesting to see her reflect on that. But it starts a bad spiral, because she calls Team RWBY an embarrassment, which is pretty harsh, comparing them to Team Juniper, how they're all empathetic and they did very well when they had to do their thing. And she spirals and spirals and spirals down this sort of thought process. And before anyone can stop her, she basically gives up and falls over and slumps over. And it seems like we're doing Inception. We got dreams within dreams now, because the vines on her hand start to spread. But this is within the dream. I thought they might do a thing, actually, because we're at episode 8 already, and we seem like we're nearing, the conclusion areas of this, so I don't know. It seemed like we had a few more episodes to play with, that maybe we'd actually finish the Weiss dream next time, but RWBY would fall into one and they'd have to do a quick one in RWBY's, but it doesn't seem that way. Instead, we're doing layering. So RWBY's out for the count, and we cut over to Weiss, and what we see is that the grimm vines have taken over everything. They're everywhere, but of course Weiss basically can't see them. And what she does is she goes back to her boardroom, and they say things about, what's the report and everything, and she says, oh, everyone's banished. And the client says, well, then a true member of the Schnee family can finally get some true sleep. And they've mentioned this a lot, that she didn't feel worthy of being in the Schnee family and all that. And they were building up to true sleep. And we get a lot of Snow White stuff here, which is something they've alluded to a lot. And as the clock symbolically counts down to midnight, the glass coffin, the ice coffin here, but you get it, comes forward with an apple on it, well, it seems Weiss is about to take a bite of that. Metaphorically, because in that glass case, ice case, is her relic, the white one. And the grimm is allowed in, and it breaks it. So it seems she's basically gone. She's given in. And they did talk about this with Shion, that if you can't stop the dream from freaking out, and you can't stop her resisting, she's gonna lose her way out. And it seems like that's happened. So now they've lost 3 relics. Unbeknownst to them, they didn't know about the white one, but they've lost 3 of 4. The only things they have left, Jean's sword, if that counts. I don't know. I think it'll come in handy, but I don't think it'll be what gives it up, because they also cut over to where Yang and Blake were actually sent, and where they were sent is the cat house. It seems to be the sort of makeshift home designed for Blake, and that's the outskirts that they were banished to. It's just like a dilapidated mansion, but everything's got cat ears, like the signs and everything. Although there is an awesome detail on the outside, which is there are these strung up, well, they're like dummies, but they're meant to be people. And that is, of course, the board of directors and people at the company that went missing and were, killed by the White Fang, which she talked about earlier and, has been present when she talked in the real world about what the White Fang had done to her family and things she'd been through. So in the dream, those bodies are literally strung up outside the house of Blake, who is the leader of the White Fang, seemingly, or representative of them, or Faunus, actually. Though it seemed pretty clear she wasn't drawing too many lines between those. Anyway, so they're very confused at this house, and there's another Klein door there, which is the bashful one. So it seems that Yang and Blake are going to have to get in, and we've already had alluded to that will very much likely be where the last relic is, Blake's one. Which is some great storytelling, because, I know so many people want RWBY to be the key, but this works way better if she isn't the key. The thing that will get them there is the last relic that is Blake's, the one she had the most problems with, the one she's had this big issue with, the one they had the fight about. She has her issues with RWBY, And, she had her issues with Ruby to start especially, but her issues with Blake are a lot deeper than that. They go back to family and that kind of thing. And it's something that we've seen Weiss wrestling with pretty constantly since this series started, and all those interactions with Blake and her thoughts about Blake in this dream, and the way that Blake's been, portrayed and treated. And so it's very interesting that, Blake is still one of her friends. She was kept in this place, which is clearly protected by a Klein door, and definitely has a relic inside. And now that the others have failed, this will be their last attempt, probably. So, be able to use the sword, probably, to make some progress. And they'll need the whole team there to take out the Grimm, and it's definitely gotten stronger, and they still have to fight everything, but now they've seemingly lost Weiss for the moment, and who knows if she'll just go to sleep, which maybe that'll make things easier, or if it'll get way worse. And they're down to their last chance of a relic to open the doors with, and it's Blake's. She's representative of Faunus, and the Faunus are the enemy in this dream, and she's going to be the one to come through and rescue her and pull her out. And that's a huge bonding thing between them. That means that the anti-Faunus issue is an arc for this whole volume at least, and that is really cool. It's well thought out, it's narratively satisfying, and I like it. But before we go, we have to check back in with Ruby, because she fell asleep in a dream, so she went down to the next level. What is it? Well, she wakes up in seemingly back at Beacon, and no one's there, and of course, you immediately know it's not real, because that's not how it happened, but she's like, what happened? She's confused. And the team walks in. Oh yeah, you rescued me, you're the best, Ruby. And they start heaping praise on her, and I thought they were going to do the thing where they were going to continue this to next episode, and Ruby was going to be in the lovely dream, the anti-nightmare, where everyone just heaps praise on her, tells her how great she is, everything's good, everyone's happy. And, someone has to snap her out of it, because it can be hard to realize those things when you're in them, it's sort of the nature of the thing. But they didn't do that, they went the creepy route instead, where suddenly people start showing up and clapping for Ruby. The team claps, and then Juniper walks in and claps. But then, the robots walk in and clap from Weiss's nightmare, and the teachers walk in and start clapping too, and then all the little Weisses run in and start clapping. And it immediately becomes off-putting and obvious that things are wrong here, and Ruby notices it too. And it just becomes that scene from Evangelion, the congratulations scene where just everyone claps. It's very much on purpose. And it's done this way to be off-putting as the applause keeps going, and Ruby's like, what is going on? Freaking out. And they all become dolls, and she's alone again, and, hard cut to next episode. So that's cool, they have a little cliffhanger. I guess we're going to have to go dream within dream. I guess it might be Jean's role to jump in somehow or do something to try and help maybe wake up Ruby. Although we do have this thing now, I was just thinking speculation that we seemingly have Ruby asleep now and Weiss might be asleep now. So that would mean both of them need rescuing in a different way, and it might just be up to the rest of the team, because we have Jean, Pyrrha, Dream Pyrrha, and Yang and Blake, and they might have to do it without Ruby, and that would also be quite interesting. I think I kind of like that, because everyone wants Ruby to always be central. I know she's main character, but really it's about the growth of everyone else, and the others have sort of been left out of this a little bit, overall, especially Ren and Nora. They don't factor into anything. But if you did it that way, where Jean, assisted by Dream Pyrrha, tries to go to rescue Ruby, and Yang and Blake have to team up, they're always a pair, to go and rescue Weiss, and they sort of all do the same thing to go and defeat it, and it isn't Ruby that defeats the enemy. That's almost way more interesting of an approach to this, and again bonds them as a team, because Ruby obviously did everything she can, and they can talk about it later. And, maybe you could do a thing where Ruby wakes up and helps, and it's just the whole team together. I can understand that too, teamwork for everyone. But it is an interesting idea if Ruby is also trapped and needs people to save her and help her. Especially after her whole thing about becoming the leader, and now doubting herself as a leader. If the team proves that they do that for her and save her as a leader, but not that she needs saving, but everyone needs help sometimes, or even if they wake up Weiss but they haven't got out of the dream, and then, they don't wake up Weiss but they save Weiss and sort of bring her back on side, bring out good Weiss in the dream, but to escape, then Weiss, Blake and Yang have to team up to save Ruby, and then they all get out. That would work really thematically as well, where you get Weiss on side to do things. So I think there's a lot you could play with there, a lot of ideas is, and I'm excited to see which way they go. The last thing I wanted to talk about is people have been talking a lot about a kiss. I've seen speculation online that it's going to end with kisses because it's RWBY, so everyone loves their shipping, and of course we got the Snow White stuff, so who's going to be the prince? And everyone's like, if it's John kissing Weiss, we riot, and it should be RWBY kissing Weiss because shipping. I don't think that's going to happen. There might be a metaphorical kiss, like in the Frozen style, a expression of love, like, mutual love, teammates, friends, that kind of thing. A symbol of love, in quotes, that helps wake them up. Because they have been doing a lot of, metaphorical references, like, there's the apple, but it's not actually an apple, she doesn't actually eat it, it's, like, symbolic, as a lot of these things are. So, I don't think there's going to be a straight-up kiss, and also, I think if they do that, it's going to make this feel very fanficky, and it's going to really affect, like, if they get season 2. So, I doubt they're going to do that. I doubt they're going to just turn it into straight up a romance thing, especially since they're already, like, leaning into how they're framing Yang and Blake, and they might pursue that, or they might just, leave it because everyone knows that. And my other counterpoint to that is, okay, if we take out all the RWBY love shipping stuff, because it annoys me anyway. If you look at it just narratively, that wouldn't make any sense either, because look at where they are as people right now. Like, they're not that close yet, no matter how much you want to read into it. Like, they are not that close at all. They haven't actually known each other for that long. So doing it like that's a bit ridiculous to me, and I think would undermine a lot of this. But I do think you're building up to some sort of expression of friendship, some sort of, love that isn't necessarily romantic that'll help, because that'll be thematic, and that's sort of what this whole thing is. And then, you come out the other side a much more bonded team because you've increased the bonds between, Weiss and Blake particularly, and everyone else has worked together, and RWBY has taken her place as leader more fittingly. She feels more comfortable in the role. Once she gets over these doubts she just had and gets back to people appreciating her, and then you have, Yang appreciating RWBY as a leader as well as a sister, and not just seeing her as someone who needs protecting and trusting her judgment. It gets you on the other side of things in a really interesting place. But I've been rambling for far too long, so thank you all very much, and I will be back for the next one. So, if you enjoyed the episode, let me know. If you didn't, let me know. If you got anything to say, let me know in the comments down below. Leave a like before you leave if you could. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll catch you next time. Until then, my name is Rigger. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope I did alright.